and welcome to the main event special podcast, Cardinals Rewind. We are in week 3 of the Cardinals season, and the Cardinals, once again, we don't get to say this too much in Arizona. Cardinals are coming off another victory last weekend against the Washington football team and have started the season at 2-0 going into this young 2020 NFL football season. Exciting things going on here in Arizona. Let's go ahead and review the victory over the Washington football team last week. Of course, it was a 30-15 victory at State Farm Stadium in Glendale. The quote-unquote home opener with no fans for the Cardinals was last weekend. My initial reactions to the game while watching it was that the Cardinals played a solid game. They were fun to watch. Their offense is innovative. Their defense was dominating at times, especially the defensive line was shutting down. But also the offensive line of the Cardinals kept that defensive front four with the young rookie, Young back there on the defensive end, and they did a great job of shutting it down. And the other thing that caught my eye in this game while watching it, is said initial reactions, was that the Cardinals got a little bit quote-unquote cute in their play calling when they didn't have to. I'd like to just see them just keep it standard. You had the victory. You had the win. You never felt that Washington was going to win this game. And you would just like to see the Cardinals kind of just play conventional offense. Of course, the argument on the other side is that you want to show things that teams have to prepare for. No, you don't. Let's just get out there, pound the ball when you have the win, keep doing your offense, and keep doing what's working and get the game win and go on. I'm not a big fan of that cutesy trickery stuff at all, let alone in that situation on there. My other initial reaction was, especially during the game, but even more so after the game, like an hour or so after the game, just like, man, this team is really entertaining to watch. They're exciting to watch. And it's just they keep you at the edge of your seat. You're enjoying. You want to see what's coming next, both on offense and defense. You want to see how guys are playing. And this, like I said, this was a pretty solid game by the Cardinals. It's not perfect by any stretch, but it's pretty dang close to perfect in terms of a Cardinals football game that we've seen in the past. And this is going to be a great, entertaining team. They've got to be hook, line, and sinker moving forward for the rest of the season. I want to see what they can do. Win or lose, should be an entertaining game. And they've shown a lot of growth compared to last year. And we'll talk about last year's start, obviously, when we talk about next week's opponent and the Detroit Lions coming up. So, on there. Some positives that came out of the game that I wrote down watching the game and stuck with me, actually. I wrote them down. And what I do when I'm watching a game is I write some stuff down. Initial reactions I wrote down. Positives I write down as they happen. And the interesting thing about this week was I wrote down 3 positives and, well, 4, I think it was 4 positives, 5 positives. 4 of them stuck with me. So when I got up and I started reviewing the notes on Tuesday, because I wanted it to simmer on Monday is what I like to do. When I got up on Tuesday and I started looking at it and getting ready to do this and waiting for the injury reports and everything, the thing that stuck with me was 4 of those positives that I wrote down, I didn't have to look up anymore. They still were with me. I was so impressed with the way the Cardinals played in 3-4 aspects of the game that they just stuck with me. I didn't have to think about it again, which is really nice and unusual because a lot of times after a Cardinals victory, I have to go back through my notes and review what happened, and these have just stuck with me. Just how impressed I was with it. So, one positive, first drive of the game was extremely positive to me. It set the tone in this game. Washington gets the ball first. Cardinals kick off to them. 3 plays, 3 yards. Defense holds strong. Washington has to punt the ball to the Cardinals. Cardinals get the ball, go 10 plays. They get the ball at the Washington 48, no less. But they go 10 plays, 63 yards, take 4 minutes and 22 seconds off the clock, but they finished the drive with a touchdown. Of course, they did have one penalty call. Kyler Murray had that excellent touchdown run where he kind of juked the defender and ended up scoring in the end zone. Called back because of a penalty. I believe it was a what was I believe that was a holding penalty if I remember correctly on there, and they had to call it back. Okay, fine. It doesn't happen. Next play, I believe it was, or a couple plays later, they get the short Murray pass over the middle to Deandre Hopkins for a 4-yard touchdown. Great to see them take the ball right off the bat, drive down the field approximately 63 yards, I think I said, and get that 7-0 lead right off the bat 5 minutes into this game, 6 minutes into this game. The other nice thing to see on this was with Hopkins and his passes, he leads the NFL in pass receptions in the first 2 weeks. It's his first 2 weeks with this quarterback in this system, and it was to see him get his his first touchdown of the season as a Cardinal early in this game as well. I know it's not a huge deal to anybody, but kind of get the monkey off his back, so to speak, for the Cardinals and DeAndre Hopkins. Take that pressure off, so that way they don't feel like they have to force it to him later on and try to get him his first touchdown. Huge, impressive drive to begin the game. I was super impressed with it, and just the way you want to start a game, especially when you're the touchdowns. And it was, even with then a penalty, which we're going to talk about penalties in a bit, as they drove down the field, Kyler Murray, like I said, went to the left, ran around the end, kind of juked out the linebacker in, interesting fashion. They kind of high-stepped him and then ran around him, scores the touchdown, and it was nullified because, like I said, of an offensive holding penalty against, I believe it was the tight end at that point, Arnold, there. But they didn't faze him at all because right after that, they took a 5-yard penalty on a short incomplete pass that Murray was throwing, and defensive holding. I'm sorry, they got the penalty, defensive holding by Washington on that Kyler Murray short and incomplete pass to, ironically enough, Arnold, who just had the penalty, so it kind of makes it up a little bit. So penalties didn't faze him at all in this game, but we are going to talk about that coming up a little bit. The next positive that I did see on there was Kyler Murray. This kid is special. I wasn't on the Kyler Murray hype train last year. If you followed the podcast last year, we definitely followed his progress throughout the year and how he improved throughout the season, mistakes he made. He's just doing impressive things this year. It's fun to watch. He knows when to run the ball. He knows when to get down. He knows when to throw the ball. He can throw the ball in the pocket. He can throw the ball on the outside. He can also tuck it and run. The thing that impresses me the most about him is that does whatever he gives the defense, whatever the defense gives him, he can deal with it. Nothing phases him. He makes a bad play. For instance, he did have another interception early in this game, but like in week 1, didn't faze him at all. That touchdown was called back that we just talked about on the running play. Didn't faze him at all. Came right back. Still got it in the end zone to move forward. For a young kid, he's got so much poise back there, and that's what I like seeing. He's playing like a veteran of 10 years in this league as a quarterback, and I'm having so much fun watching it. If this trajectory trends continue with Kyler Murray, it's going to be special kid for the Cardinals as a quarterback. It's going to be great to watch his progress as the Cardinals grow with him on there. He's just elusive. He's smart. He has command of the offense like you haven't seen in a second-year guy for the most part. He takes what the defense gives to him, as I said. Now, it was 26 for 38, 286 yards. Like I said, 1 throwing touchdown, 1 interception out there. So we'll all take 1 interception thrown by Kyler Murray a game. The thing that I like about it, the thing that I've been impressed about it, is it's early in the game also. It's not coming late in the game when he's trying to force things in, because the Cardinals haven't been in that situation at all. And it's nice to see that when it happens early in the game also, it doesn't derail them, as a team. Doesn't get in his head too much, and it's great to watch. Kyler Murray also on rushing the ball, he did have 2 touchdowns rushing it as well. So not only did he throw for the 1 touchdown, he did have the 2 running touchdowns. And 67 total rushing yards on 8 carries for him. And like I said, very few hits. I know for week 1 we had that stat where I can't remember the stat now. Just go with me on the numbers. even though they're not going to be accurate exactly, but you're going to get the gist of it. 14 carries. He only got hit once on a sack. The other ones were out of bounds. He slid touchdowns, and he didn't take any big hits this week either. It was great to see out there going. The next thing that I wrote down and stuck with me for the positive, and this one sticks with me every week, because that week one, the Cardinals special teams has just been great. They've been momentum turners almost out there. Week one, remember, they had that blocked punt when things were going south for the Cardinals at the beginning of that game. It was 10-0. 49ers had the lead. Nothing was going right for the Cardinals on offense or defense. Special team goes out there, blocks that punt. Cardinals go down and score right away and get some kind of momentum, gets them back in the game a little bit, gets their spirits up, etc. Same thing kind of happened this week. Although they weren't down and things weren't going well for them. But what I like to see about it was, so the Cardinals started with going for that touchdown on 63 yards, 10 plays. Then Kyla threw the interception on the next play. And the interception, he was trying to throw the ball to Andy Isabella out there, and just went to the defender. Things happen. Then the Washington gets the ball back and fumbles the ball. Cardinals get it back and they punt. On this punt is when it was blocked. So they had the touchdown right off the bat. They just had the interception go against them. Washington fumbles the balls. They're excited about it. They get the ball back. And then what do? 3 plays, 3 yards, have to punt the ball. They block that punt. It's just the perfect timing where after the interception, getting a good fumble recovery from Washington, and then just coming right back right away, not going anywhere in offense. Special team says, you know what? We got you offense. We're coming in. We're blocking this. Cardinals get the ball right back again. They then go 6 plays. This is the other exciting thing about it. The real positive that I like is after turnovers, the Cardinals are scoring. So week one, remember, against the Niners, they scored a few plays after the punt block. And then here, 6 plays later, 40 yards, Cardinals score a touchdown. Kyler Murray runs the ball in for 14 yards for a touchdown as they go down the field, making it 14-0. That's the things that win you games in this league, and this is what I enjoy watching with this team is not only do they special teams stepping up and doing these things that get the team momentum their way, they're doing things when things are kind of down a little bit, and they're going in there and they're making these blocks, but then the offense is going out there and scoring right afterwards. Scoring after turnovers is huge in my eyes, and I love to see this by the Cardinals special teams and then their offense performing after that. Love it. It's fantastic. Huge positive. Great to see it in the first 2 weeks. Obviously, would love to see it the rest of the year. Get touchdowns after turnovers, and it's demoralizing for the opponent, and it gives you a lot more momentum, and it's great to see. The last thing I wrote down, and this stuck with me, this one stuck with me, and I wasn't sure if I was seeing it right, because I felt like the Cardinals had a balanced offense while watching the game throughout the game, but they really did. They threw the ball a lot more than they ran the ball in the first 3 quarters, going back and looking at it. And this one stuck with me because while I was watching the game, I wrote down, and I said in the fourth quarter, Cardinals running game is dominating, and they are taking the air out of the ball, and Washington will not get the ball back and allowing them to come back more than they have already. In the fourth quarter. They had scored 10 points in the fourth quarter. 12 points in the fourth quarter. Washington did. But the Cardinals went, and Kenyon Drake was able to get first downs running the ball. The offensive line was getting down and blocking linebackers. They were getting off the ball that good. And I wrote that down, and I was like, maybe they were doing that, but maybe they were doing that all game. And yes, they were kind of dominating the Redskins defense. The Washington football team's defensive line throughout the first through the first 3 quarters, but they were throwing the ball a lot. Kyler Murray was scrambling a lot. When it came time to run down the clock, running game came on, and the running game came on strong, and they did a great job at it, so that's a positive you'd love to see also. I'd like to see more of a balance throughout the game, but if you're going to be up in the lead and you're able to run the ball that late and dominate the defensive line like the Cardinals did, nobody's going to complain about that. Solid run game there, especially in the fourth quarter for the Cardinals going forward, and I love seeing that on this team. How many times in years past, even last year, when the Cardinals had a lead in the fourth quarter and they were still throwing the ball late. They did it kind of against the 49ers as well. They were still throwing the ball, stopping it on incompletions, things like that. This time they actually handed the ball off and got it. Loved every second of it. Now, negatives. We always touch on negatives a little bit here. This game, there weren't a ton of negatives out there. I feel like you're nitpicking a little bit if you go into the negatives a little bit, but there's always something to improve on and things to watch for. For me, I got two issues here that stuck out in this game. Both of them stuck out as soon as the game was over. But first one is penalties. Cardinals had another 11 penalties in this game. And penalties can be at costly times. That's a lot of penalties. I believe I was trying to find the stat before I went on air here. I believe the Cardinals are leading the league in penalties against them. If they're not leading it, they're up there. They're definitely in the top 2 or 3. We want to see that stop. They need to clean up that game, and they need to knock down these penalty amounts against them. Absolutely. Week 1 was the same way in penalties. Week 2 was. They escaped with victories. Not going to nitpick it per se and say, oh, this is going to cost them a game later on. But we want to see those penalties drop down a little bit. The other thing that kind of raised my eyebrow a little bit, I'm not worried about it. Don't take it like I'm worried about it. Don't think that, I'm thinking this is a horrible thing. Week 1, the secondary of the Cardinals wasn't tested till the end of that game. And then Byron Murphy, made some plays. Patrick Peterson made some plays, etc. On the receiving yards for Dwayne Haskins, he did have 223 yards. He did have 1 touchdown thrown. He was only 19 for 33, wasn't too big. But Terry McLaurin, basically the Washington football team's only receiver that they really have right now. 7 receptions, 125 yards with a touchdown. He had 10 targets. Secondary wasn't tested that well. I mean, he had a lot of yardage, but I didn't feel like the secondary was tested that much. So I don't know if this is a case of secondary. I'm going to use the word bored back there. I'm not sure, if the secondary got a little bored, and so they're letting him run around a little bit. But this is something that was just a little bit eye-opener, where first time they're quote-unquote almost tested. I mean, Steven Sims had 3 catches for 53 yards. Logan Thomas being their tight end at 4 catches for 26 yards. Just something that pay attention to because they haven't been tested. And so we don't have the answers to the secondary of the Cardinals yet this season. And one thing that this stuck out a little bit on me with McLaurin having the 125 yards is that they have the Detroit Tigers this week, which we'll talk about going in. They have they have 2 good receivers on that team. And we're not sure how the Cardinals secondary, with their limited exposure this year and being tested, how they're going to hold up. So it's an interesting thing to watch for this week. Like I said, nothing I'm worried about. I'm not freaking out about it, saying this is the worst secondary in the league, that we're going to get exposed, we're going to lose some games because of them. I'm not going that far yet because, quite frankly, they haven't been tested in a game to where you can come to that conclusion by any stretch. But it was just kind of something that just caught my eye a little bit. It was like, man, part of the reason I caught it was because the guy I was playing in one of my fantasy leagues had McLaurin starting, and he was just killing me. It just killed me. I lost that game, and one of the reasons I lost that game was just he put up astronomical points in this fantasy league, and it kind of caught my eye there, and then it allowed me to watch it in the game a little bit more, and I just, like to see it dial down. And we need to figure out what this secondary is going to be like. And this week, we might have the test, like I said, against the Detroit Lions, who are coming into Glendale. So we'll get into that here in a bit. So recently on here, these first 2 weeks at least, we've been what I call the field goal watch, right? Last week, we spoke in depth about the Cardinals trying long field goals pretty much exclusively. They don't try a lot of short field goals. They try a lot of 49, 52. There's a 56-yarder. And Zane Gonzalez is moderate success, but I don't think you can fault I think I said it last week, you can't fault a kicker who misses a 54-yarder, 154-yarder, but then he hits a 56-yarder. those are kicks that should be made, but I can also understand them not being made every once in a while, right? Like you still should make them, but there. So one thing this week that I did watch, the Cardinals didn't get a lot of opportunities because they were scoring touchdowns for the most part when they had the ball, but the trend did continue with field goals. However, it was kind of corrected a little bit. Now, right off the bat, to make the game 17 to nothing, he did make a 49er. Zane Gonzalez did make a 49-yard field goal. Then, later on in the first half, toward the end of the first half, they got it to a 33-yard field goal. It's like a chip shot for Zane Gonzalez at this point because he's kicking all these long ones, right? To make it 20 to nothing. So 49 one, a 33-yard one. Second half, he only had to kick one field goal. The team had the ball, they scored touchdowns, or they were able to, go down the field and take some time off the clock. 28-yarder in the second half to make it 30 to 15. Kind of closed the game out officially at that point. So one thing I did want to say also in terms of the special teams and what the Cardinals did was the offense was getting it closer. They weren't leaving the field goal unit to kick a lot of large, long 49, 52, 54-yard field goals this week. They were able to get closer and allow for basically chip shot field goals, which was also an improvement I'd like to see this week as well. Because I was kind of lamenting last week of how many long field goals the Cardinals. I think all the field goals against the, week one against the 49ers was 59 yard or was 50 plus yarders. There was a 49er, I think, but there was a 52, 54. He made a 56er. So it's just nice to see them still be able to drive a little closer for him on there. And that's something we'll pay attention this year. It's just something that caught my eye in the first game. It was funny when they lined up for the first field goal here for the 49er. I said, here we go again. It's like they stall here at the right about the 50-yard field goal range, and it's what they do. And they leave it for long field goals. So it was nice to see him get a 33-yarder and a 28-yarder in there also during the game. Just something, like I said, nothing to freak out about. He makes the long field goals more often than he doesn't. Nothing to flip out about. Nothing to worry about right now. Absolutely not. It's just something that I watch. When I watch my football games, those of you that follow me on the Main Event podcast and on the Main Event radio show, is I pay attention to things. Things catch my eyes, and I'm curious about it. I just kind of want a trend. Most of the time it turns out to just be nothing, but this is something I find a little funny, and I want to watch how it goes, especially long field goals to end the game, to win a game that's close, and you have a 54 56 yarder. Obviously you want to get as close as possible as we continue the year. Those are worrisome because it's easy to miss those as they go along. So basically what I'm trying to say right now is I hope the Cardinals aren't just relying on, so when they get to that yardage point and they're like, okay, let's go conservative. Let's try some things. If it doesn't work, we can make a 54-yard field goal. I'd like to see him still push forward. I don't see any evidence of that right now. Just something I want to watch throughout the season. The other thing that we do follow on this is time of possession for the teams, because I'm a big believer in time of possession in football. Especially, it helps the defense out. The defense can go get rested on the sidelines. If the defense can go and get their game planning in, they can get rested. They're more fluid in the third and fourth quarter. They're able to make plays still in the third and fourth quarter, especially when they have to. For instance, see the 49ers game where 49ers were coming down late and the defense had to step up there late. They had their fresh legs. They had their legs underneath them to make those plays to win that game. And part of that, there's other factors, of course, but some of that comes down to time of possession. In this game, the thing that we kind of talked about already is Cardinals had a lot of long drives, which was great to see. So the time of possession for Washington was 26 minutes, 15 seconds. So 26-1-5. Arizona, 33 minutes, 45 seconds. So definitely won the time of possession. But where the Cardinals won the time of possession was, when you do the breakdown, was in the first half. The first quarter, actually, even a little bit more specific on there. So it was pretty much even the other three quarters for the most part between these two teams as they went through the game. So they won in the first quarter for the most part as they went. Now, like I said, they had a drive of 4 minutes and 22 seconds, a 10-play, 63-yarder, 422. they had some short, 3 plays and out, minute 15, minute 30. Like I said, that one 6 play drive after the block punt was 2 minutes 44. They went 6 play, 40 yards. The field goal one was 5 plays, 61 yards. So, they obviously, this was a drive, I believe, where they threw it deep to, I believe it was Andy Isabella for a 50-yard pass. It was Andy Isabella on this one. So it's great to see them go deep on this play. And pick it up. And Andy Isabella is a speedster, can get down there deep, but it's great to see him, do something in this game to be on the stat line and make a difference on it. But a minute 57 on this one, even though it was long yardage on there. And we're getting to the point here, 4:03 here also in the first half. But then in the second half, first drive, minute 53. Second drive, 2 minutes 52, both punts. Touchdown drive, 12 plays, 80 yards, 3 minutes 57 seconds. Look, we're not gonna fault time of possession on a team if they do long plays. Like the last one, it was a short minute drive for a 60 yards drive, but they had 54 yards to Andy Isabella. We're not gonna argue that, right? Because you want to see those long plays. But on this drive, they had a 25-yard pass to Deandre Hopkins on there. They had a 12-yard pass to Larry in there. And, they 21-yard touchdown up the middle for Kyler Murray to run the ball up the middle and score there. A lot of big plays on this drive. So it was an 80-yard drive, only took 3 minutes and 57 seconds off the clock. But they were huge plays on this drive to score. We're not going to fault that at all, right? On that for having a long drive. I'll take an 80-yard, 357 drive and defense get less rest than I would if they, went out there, like I said, punt drive, punt next one, punt, 247. Field goal one, 6 minutes, 12 seconds, end of the fourth quarter there to kind of put that game away officially, even though it was already put away. So the Cardinals are able to, when they move the ball, they're able to take time off the clock and or make big plays and not take as much time off the clock, but they still take time off the clock. It's exciting to watch. The defense is rested out there. Now, granted, it's the second week of the season. I love what the Cardinals are doing for their rotations on defense. They're getting their linemen in and out of there, so they're fresh later in the game, which is great to see. Now, granted, like I said, it's a whole other deal since we're talking about second game of the season. We're going to have to wait and see what happens later on in the season as their injuries mount up, the Knicks mount up, and they get a little bit more tired. One thing that it's not a negative. I didn't put it in the negative category, but just found it interesting. Cardinals started off hot, as we talked about. Had a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. Six points in the second quarter to basically make it a 20-0 lead at halftime. Third quarter, nothing. No points in the third quarter at all. No possibility for points in the third quarter at all, which is kind of disappointing. For as well as you, in your mind, you think the Cardinals offense played. I mean, basically, in the third quarter, it was punts for the most part there as they went on. Now, granted, did they score? They might have scored. I could be wrong on this. I'm looking at the stat sheet now. I thought they scored a touchdown at the end of the third quarter, but it might have been the beginning of the fourth quarter. According to the stat sheet, it looks like that was it. So, but they basically punts in the third quarter, which after halftime adjustments, you'd like to see them come out and establish themselves again as the winners on the field, as the team that's going to beat you. I just feel a third quarter lackadaisical might raise an eyebrow just a hair for me, because it just means things were tweaked in the locker room or not tweaked in the locker room, and the opposing team was able to tweak things and make improvements. And, games are won, obviously, with those halftime adjustments and all of that good stuff. So, on there. So, just some quick insights from the game as well. Kyler Murray is the first Cardinals quarterback to start 2-0 with 500-plus pass yards through week 2 since Kurt Warner in 2008. My favorite thing about this stat is what they throw in after. That's a pretty impressive stat to begin with. Then what do? Warner led Arizona to the Super Bowl that season. It's funny how they throw that extra little thing at the backside, right? So quarterback comparisons. Haskins for Washington, 223 passing yards, one total touchdown. That was passing. One turnover, 8 rushing yards. Kyler Murray, as we talked about, 286 passing yards, 3 total touchdowns. 2 were rushing, one was passing. He did have that one interception early in the game, 67 rushing yards. So after week one, Ron Rivera in Washington knew they'd have to figure out how to stop Kyler Murray from rushing the ball and try to make him a pocket passer. They were not successful at it at all. Those 67 rush yards were fantastic. He generates that Cardinals offense pretty well. Wide receiver comparison, as I said, McLaurin for Washington, 7 receptions, 125 yards. Yeah, the one touchdown. But DeAndre Hopkins is on fire. He didn't have as much, 8 receptions for 68 yards and one touchdown. But the first 2 games combined, he is absolutely on fire. And here's the stat I kind of alluded to earlier. DeAndre Hopkins has surpassed San Francisco's Earl Cooper and Atlanta's Eric Metcalf, which both had 19, for the most receptions in their first 2 games with a new team in NFL history. So with no off, the thing that makes this impressive is with no off season for the most part, teams weren't organized to play. Obviously, they worked out together on their own, for instance, but no off season, no formal workouts, and they still have a connection, and they're still out there doing the things to get DeAndre Hopkins the ball and generate some movement of the chains and all that. And it's great to see early in the season. That's just going to get better as the season goes on. We do have a little bit of bad news on the wide receiver front this week coming up against the Lions. We'll get into in a bit. But the other thing about it, before we get to that, I want to just say this is exciting times in Arizona because the Cardinals have started 2-0 for the 6th time in the last 30 years. And it's the first time since 2015 that the Cardinals started their season 2-0. So it's almost like we're in unprecedented, times here. So I'm not a big fan of the team specific stats. So I read that one earlier where, Arizona quarterback. This is another one of those. But it's still interesting to see that Kyler Murray has surpassed Charlie Trippy and King Hill, older players, for those of you that aren't familiar with Cardinals history. A lot older players. For the most career 20-plus yard touchdowns by an Arizona QB since 1950. My voice cracks. I mean, Kyler Murray is getting touchdowns on short distances and long distances, which is amazing because these defenses know he can do this, and he still goes out there and does it. So, Kyler Murray's 21-yard score in the fourth quarter was his 3rd career rush touchdown of 20-plus yards. Arizona had 2 total touchdown runs of 20-plus yards by a QB from 1970 to 2018. So it's this running quarterbacks, which I'm a full disclosure, I'm not the biggest running quarterback fan. I love quarterbacks that can throw from the pocket and scramble, and that looks like that's what we got here with Kyler Murray. He can throw a beautiful ball from the pocket, but he can also scramble and get out of trouble. It's great to watch. One of the comparisons I've been seeing lately is a Steve Young comparison, and I would tend to agree with that, even though I don't like comparing people. I would agree with that comparison in there. It's because he does look to throw the ball first and then can go and get out as he needed to, so as he went around. So, a lot of, Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins stats this week. Kyler Murray is the first QB in Super Bowl era with 40-plus rushing yards and 1-plus TD in each of his first 2 weeks of his season. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, what we're seeing from Kyler Murray back there. DeAndre Hopkins, 4-yard score in the first quarter, was his 32nd receiving touchdown since 2017. Obviously, he was with the Houston Texans, who also, at that time, had a high-powered offense. So he just fits into this system so well. And the Cardinals getting him almost feels like a steal, even more than it did so when they actually traded for him for David Johnson and some other things. So just some quick, insights into the game on what we're seeing there. What we are looking and what we are seeing here is Cardinals fans in these first 2 weeks, excuse me. So now we're coming on to week 2, right? Or I'm sorry, week 3. Cardinals face the Detroit Lions. Of course, last year, if you remember this game, it was the first game of the season. I remember going to this game, and we were all a little skittish on what we were going to see. We were all hoping for good things. We were all excited because all offseason, all training camp was all about how Cardinals offense is going to be prolific. Cardinals offense is going to be unexpected. Last year, week 1, they gave us the opposite. The first 3 quarters was mundane. Nothing went right. It was, quite frankly, garbage football. Nothing was good. I remember just sitting in those stands, just going, "This is what we've been hyping all off season. How great this offense is going to be. This is the worst offense I've seen ever. It was so bad." And then they turned it on, fourth quarter. Boom, they started showing signs. They started doing innovative things. They started taking the ball down on Detroit Lions, eventually tied it in the fourth quarter. And then, of course, the game ended in an overtime tie of 27-27. And you could see the flashes as they started going and coming back in the fourth quarter. You could see these innovative things, and you saw them as you went through all last year and everything. So this was the kickoff to it last year. Of course, Sunday's game is at 1:25 p.m. On Fox. Of course, it's home in Glendale. Little side note on fans, they are allowing, I think, up to 725 people or something. Basically, close friends of players, coaches, our family members are going to be allowed at this week game. Like I told you guys before, I'm anticipating in October more fans being let in, and it's just going to be an increase in fans slowly throughout the rest of the season. As of now, unless something major happens, another outbreak or something. But this is kind of the test this week, and then I'm anticipating a little bit more fan friendly as we move on here. So this season, the Detroit Lions, Matt Patricia, as if you follow me on the main event, I am not a Matt Patricia fan. I've never been a Matt Patricia fan. I just don't think he was very good in New England. I'm sorry. He got a lot of praise for Bill Belichick, and it's happening just like I thought it would. It's all Bill Belichick in New England. When his coaches leave to coach teams, they are not very good. And Patricia isn't that. He's over his head, doesn't know what he's doing. It's just, I'm not impressed with him at all. Which is too bad because I'm a big Matthew Stafford fan. I think Matthew Stafford is doing great things in this Lions offense, even though he has nothing to do it with, basically, because his head coach, whatever. So the Lions come into this game after 2 weeks of games, 19th in the NFL on offense. So we're just worse than like basically average. So on the downside of average, so not on the positive side of average there. Their defense, get this, 27th in the NFL. Now, is that just because of the first 2 weeks? They haven't figured it out? Or they're now coming up against Kyler Murray and this Cardinals offense that not only can put up yards on you, but they can also score on you in multiple ways. Now, do you stop Kyler Murray? Do you stop Kenyon Drake? Do you stop Chase Edmonds? How do you stop DeAndre Hopkins? If you're 27th ranked defense, you're not sleeping this week trying to figure out how you're going to stop the Cardinals going into this game. Now, to break down the offensive rankings a little bit more, like I said, 19th in offense in NFL. They have a couple of really good receivers there, absolutely. It's just getting the ball to them. But 13th in passing in the NFL. So, pretty good passing game. Cardinals' passing game is 15th in the league. So, Detroit does pass the ball a lot more. And this is what I meant by when we talked about this Washington game with the Washington receiver getting 125 yards. Was Cardinals are going to be tested this week, and their secondary is going to be tested this week and how they can stop. Both Dre Kirkpatrick and Patrick Peterson, even Murphy back there, are going to be tested on this Detroit offense with Matt Stafford throwing the ball. I think this is going to be the week we're going to kind of see what this defensive secondary can do. Now, the rushing offense is 19th in the league. They don't have a very good rushing game, although they do show signs of improvement on that side. Fairly good running game. It's just, going up against the Cardinals defensive line and front seven who have been getting to the quarterback, have been able to kind of bottle up the running game. Good luck with that running game to improve this week. This might not be the week for the Lions to expect their running game to improve. Now, one thing I'm looking forward to this week is Cardinals defense will put pressure on Matt Stafford. Now, Chandler Jones did not have a sack last week. Other people did, which is great to see. If he can't get there for double teams or something, it's great to see the other guys get back there. Here's the other thing is Kennard played for the Lions, and they let him go in the offseason, obviously, where he signed with the Cardinals. This is a kind of a revenge, you let me go kind of a game for him. I'm expecting a big game for Kennard on that defensive line to get back there and make his acquaintances with his offensive players that he played against practice-wise with the Lions for the last couple years on there. So the Cardinals secondary will be tested this week. This is my matchup this week. Cardinals secondary against the Detroit Lions offense with Matt Stafford and those receivers out there. This is where I'm going to watch. This is where the game is going to be won or lost for the Cardinals, I believe, in terms of on the defensive side. If Matt Stafford goes out there and can throw the ball around and puts up a lot of points, it's going to be a battle for the Cardinals. If that secondary of the Cardinals can shut down them, the defensive line, the linebackers can get to Matt Stafford, put pressure on him, get some turnovers, even pressure him, it's going to be a good day for the Cardinals in terms of the defense, stopping the Lions offense. In terms of offense for the Cardinals, I'm expecting them to I'm expecting this to unfold a lot like the Washington football team game did. The Cardinals, I'm expecting their run game to be dominant again. Meaning when they have to run the ball with Kenyon Drake and Chase Edmonds, they're going to dominate the defensive line of the Lions, and they're going to be able to run and pick up big chunks. They're going to be able to get first downs. They're going to be able to run the ball on that. I'm also expecting Kyler Murray to be able to do kind of what he did against Washington. Pretty much the answer to that is whatever he wants. He's going to be able to throw the ball. He's going to be able to run the ball, and there's just nothing the Lions are going to be able to do to stop it on that. So I believe the Cardinals are going to look spectacular this weekend. Very similar to way I'm expecting this game to be very similar to the Washington football game that we just saw in week 2. Doesn't mean the score is going to be that lopsided. Doesn't mean anything like that. I'm just saying in terms of the actual output, I'm expecting a lot of pressure on the defense. And I'm most interested, the thing to keep your eye on this week is that Cardinals defense against this Lions offense. They aren't world beaters by any stretch. I am not saying they are by any stretch. I'm not saying necessarily that the Cardinals need to fear the Lions offense. What I'm saying is this is pretty much the first time I expect after that 49ers game where they weren't very tested. I'm expecting the Cardinals to be tested on defense this week. Doesn't mean that I think the Lions are going to win this game that way. I'm just saying that's the place to watch and pay attention to. And that's where my eye is going to be. Obviously, watching the thing, but I'm expecting the Cardinals offense to be pretty much the same as it was against Detroit. Against Washington, because the Cardinals offense was that way against the Niners as well. And the Niners at that point in week 1 had a great defense, and the Cardinals still were able to do things against that defense. So when you go up against a mediocre to a not very good defense in the Lions, I'm expecting that offense to still be able to dominate, get their yardage, both through the air and also dominate in the running game when they have to go to that. So as a prediction for this week, I have the Cardinals winning this game. I think it's going to be actually a fairly high-scoring affair for these guys. It's going to be like a 31-23 type of a ball game with the Cardinals' victory. The Lions will get some points late. I think the Cardinals are at home are going to be, even with no fans there, some of their family and friends there especially. I'm thinking they're going to come out a little bit on fire and go that route. The other couple of stats here for the Cardinals that are really impressive when you dig into their stats that you don't really think about. But the Cardinals defense is allowing 17.5 points per game this season. That's the second fewest in the NFL, folks. So this defense is stepping up. They're not allowing people to score large amounts of points while their offense is able to go out there and score. So I expect it to go that way. It's going to be a little tougher to get there this week. I am expecting the Lions to probably put up, 3 touchdowns in that range at some point during this game, maybe some garbage ones at the end. Just for comparison, Arizona allowed 27.6 points per game in the 2019 season. That was only fifth most in the NFL, but you can see the disparity there and how they're clamping down on both the 49ers to start this season and then Washington last week. So a good team, better than a good team against the Niners, and a expected to be bottom of the barrel team in Washington. And the Lions are kind of in the middle at this point between these two. So I'm expecting a little bit tougher of a game than last week, but I'm expecting kind of not only the same results, but also the same type of game for the Cardinals offense and defense. So definitely hit me up on Twitter at SMAC500. Of course, at the Main Event Pod on Twitter and Facebook is where you'll find the main event posting stories that we put out. And more of the information regarding sports going on. So follow them both. Tweet out to me at SMAC500 and let me know when these get posted out. Let me know what you think this game's going to go this weekend. I want to know how you think the game's going to go for both the Cardinals and also the Lions. I think Cardinals victory is coming this week. Let's hopefully Cardinals start with a 3-0 victory to begin this season. It's been a long time since we've seen that. We don't see it very often. It's going to be great to see if the Cardinals can go out there this week, do all the things we talked about, win this game against the 0-2 Detroit Lions. And let's put more pressure on Matt Patricia to Detroit Lions to make a coaching change after this year and get Matt Stafford the help he needs, because I really enjoy his quarterbacking. I think he's a pretty good quarterback, just in an awful system, awful team. I want to see some magic things out of him. Obviously not this week against the Cardinals, please. So, join me next week as we come back and we look forward to the Week 4 matchup, I believe, against the Jets. I believe is who it's against. And we also review this week's game at home against the Lions. Let's go, Cardinals. Let's see some another victory this weekend, and I'll see you all next week.